Hi everyone. So today I wanted to install Alpine Linux on Hyper-V, but I don't actually have Hyper-V, and I don't have a computer to install Hyper-V on, so I decided to install Hyper-V on ESXi, and then install Alpine Linux on Hyper-V. I've downloaded the Windows Server 2019 ISO, and I've created this VM to host it on. And the only thing I really had to do here that's a little different is I had to make sure that Enable Virtualization Based Security was selected. And that will pass hardware virtualization features into the guest, which Hyper-V will need to run its own guest VMs. So we'll go ahead and start Windows setup. Here I'll choose the data center evaluation option, and this is basically server core, so there's no UI. So everything's going to be PowerShell, command prompt, etc. Wish me luck. This screen initially looks concerning. It says we couldn't find any drives, but that's just because there's no PVSCSI driver yet. So we can go and add that. We'll just swap out the Windows Server 2019 ISO for the PVSCSI Windows 8 ISO. And in case you're wondering, where did you get a PVSCSI ISO from? Well, I just converted the floppy disk into an ISO using make ISOFS. So now that that's in there, we'll load driver, and there's the PVSCSI controller. We replaced one error with a different one that says Windows can't be installed on this drive. That's actually just because I haven't swapped the ISO back yet. So this will select the 2019 ISO, and then we can refresh, and it should let us go through. Okay, that's the Windows install done. Just a few reboots later, probably. Okay, brilliant. So this is the first boot. We'll change the administrator password. You can't use enter here on the new password line, but you can use down arrow to get to confirm password. And then enter here. I really like this new UI. Right, so there's no network card because there's no VMXnet 3 driver. So we'll have to go and install VMware Tools. So we'll just swap the Windows Server ISO out for the Windows ISO, which is the VMware Tools. And then run setup. Now, somewhat annoyingly, the installer is actually behind the command prompt. It's hiding. If you look really carefully here, you'll actually see the VMXnet 3 driver. There it is. Get installed. Now at the end here, it wants to reboot. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to install Hyper-V, and that's going to cause a bunch more reboots. All right, so Hyper-V should be installed. Oh, this is annoying. It sometimes eats the first character in this dialog box. So let's make a directory where we can store the VMs. And let's set that to be the default directory for new virtual machines. And hard drives as well. And let's see if the VMware Tools install worked. We should have a VMXnet 3. Yeah, VMXnet 3 Ethernet adapter. Brilliant. Let's grab a couple of things that we need. First is the Alpine ISO. And then we also need a copy of PuTTY, which we're going to use as a serial console. I found this Start-BitsTransfer to work the best. No copy and paste. Okay, so that's PuTTY. Let's grab the ISO. Okay, let's take a look and see if they look reasonable. Yeah, so that's about a 70 meg ISO and about a 1.7 meg copy of PuTTY. That seems good. Now let's create a VM switch. This is going to basically just bridge the VMXnet 3 adapter with all the guests. All right, now we can start creating VMs. I'm going to create the VM two different ways, Generation 1 and Generation 2. Now, Alpine does not need very much in terms of resources, so 2 gigs for both the disk and memory are plenty for what we'll need. Okay, the VM was created. Now we should attach the ISO. Let's just see if there's already a drive assigned to this VM. So yeah, there's an IDE controller. So we can attach the ISO to it. Oops. Great. And then let's just check to see if it actually was attached. Yeah, you can see the path there. That's good. Right, and then we need to make a COM port. And this is the serial console that we're going to use. Now this is really slick. We can use a named pipe to create this virtual serial console. The other thing we should do is change the boot order, and that's because by default it boots from CD, which means that if we reboot after installation, it's going to boot the Alpine ISO again and again, which is not great. That seems like a lot, but you have to specify all 4, else this command will error out. That should do it. Start her up. And then we can run PuTTY and try to connect to it. Now I'm going to change the default font. It is too small, and Courier is not really a great font anyway for a console. Fortunately, there's console S on here. I think 14 point should be all right. And then we will steal this path, and we will use it as a serial connection, and save this session. I'm just going to hit enter to wake it up. Great. So this should be the installer. We'll just run setup Alpine as normal. I normally do use an NTP client, but my firewall would block it, so I won't use it today. It's kind of funny that it would suggest to install onto the floppy disk. It's also funny that there is a floppy drive on this thing. All right, install done. Please reboot. Let's try. And you'll notice that it actually, oh, that's just because the device closed after the VM restarted. You'll notice that it's actually creating a /mount/boot. And that's because we are booting with a Generation 1 VM, which is a BIOS style boot, as opposed to Generation 2, which is an EFI boot. So I'll go ahead and restart the session. It's probably back. Alpine is very snappy. And again, I'll just hit enter to wake the terminal up. Yeah, super. You can tell that we're in the actual installed system because of the host name here, and also the fact that the kernel version is much newer. Okay, the reason I was trying this is somebody reported that services weren't starting when Alpine was run in Hyper-V. So I'm going to install lighttpd and see if it will survive a reboot. Okay, so that's the service installed, and then we have to add it to the default run level. And then we'll reboot, and we'll see if it comes back up. Unfortunately, you can't see the actual VM console without some kind of Windows system with a UI, apparently. I don't know much about Hyper-V, but I hope that it should be rebooted by now. Yep, and let's log in and see if that service started. Yeah, it says it started. Check status. Yeah, the services here are all starting. And oops, it shows up in the PS list. So it's definitely running. In fact, you could wget it. It says it's forbidden. I guess we don't have a HTTP route. Okay, well, I will leave this for now, and we'll do the same thing with a Generation 2, which is an EFI style boot. I'm going to cheat and use my existing commands, just with some different numbers. So Gen 2 here, Generation 2, and Gen 2. And similarly, let's check to see if there is a DVD drive. So this is the difference between a Generation 1 and a Generation 2, so there's no actual drive by default. So we can't set VM DVD drive. We have to add VM DVD drive. And now if we get it, we'll see that it exists. You'll notice too that the controller type is different. For a Generation 1, it's an IDE, and in Generation 2, it's SCSI. And then there's the ISO attached, which is good. And we'll create a COM port like before. Now, I'm not changing this number 1. That's actually the COM port number, like COM1. So that'll be the same for both VMs. And just like before I changed the boot order, I'm going to take network boot out. It slows down the boot quite a bit, and it wouldn't work anyway. So you don't use VM BIOS here, use VM firmware. And I'm also going to turn off secure boot, without which the EFI bootloader won't actually load. I always forget the VM name. So that will have turned secure boot off and set the correct boot order. And we can check that by using git VM firmware, which shows secure boot and does not show network in the boot order. And in case you're wondering like which one of these drives is which, you could check that too. And you can see that the hard drive is first and then the DVD drive is second. So that's good. We can start the VM then. And we'll use PuTTY to access the serial console. I'm just going to make another one of these, but with Gen 2. And we'll see if this works. So I'm going to hit enter to wake the terminal up. Sweet. We are in the installer. I'm just going to blast through this. Now notice here that it's using mkfs.fat, and that's because it's created an ESP, an EFI system partition, and that's where the bootloader is going to go. So this is different than the Gen 1 where it's, I think it's a syslinux or ext Linux style boot. Okay, the install is done. We can reboot. Oops, if I can type. Okay, and then we'll give it a moment to complete the reboot, and then I'll restart the PuTTY. Again, I'm just going to hit enter to try to wake it up. I was too quick. There we go. And we'll do the same test as before. Okay, we'll reboot and see if the service comes back after a reboot. And we're back. Oops. That's good. And that's all good. And let's check the PS. That's also good. And finally, yeah, no root. Right, so that's Alpine on Hyper-V on ESXi. Thanks for watching.